Hello and welcome back to video number 6 of the 10-part quantum training for supported living DSPs. We are in the second half of the 10 Commandments, and this one's probably going to be the most important to you because, well, this one's actually about your payroll. This takeaway is basically just how to learn how to confirm your time. Now, this commandment's actually been updated in the past about 2 to 3 weeks, so the wording here has changed a little bit. So actually, as of right now, you are actually able to view your own time card, but only for locked maps. So this is actually going to be a precursor to the next commandment. There's a new button called the My Time Card Review, where you can, on your dashboard, where you can go and view your time that's going to be submitted for billing and payroll. And I do stress that if you have hours that aren't showing, then we have a secondary option to view if those hours have been inputted, and just to be able to confirm your time. So to do that, so we're in Quantum, we're on the main screen, and here in the middle is this new button that's called the My Time Card Review. All you do is click it, and this little window is going to pop up. Now, there's only three things you need to worry about. These two date fields in this button over here. Everything else you can ignore. You don't have to worry about this tab, this time card for staff, or any of this. You don't have to worry about it. Just worry about these two dates and this button here that says create/refresh. I guess technically, if you come to this current period button and you right click it, you can automatically click the previous 7 days, and it'll show you all your time that you've entered in for that previous 7 days. But anyway, the top date here is your from or your start date, and this bottom date is your to or your end date. So you enter in a date span, and it'll give you pretty much all the time that you've entered, what's going to show on your payroll between those two dates. So in this instance, I'm going to do Monday the 29th of October through the 3rd. And in the previous commandment, I said to enter in your time on a daily basis. I would almost go back and say, run this report on a daily basis just to confirm that your time is in there and that you're going to get paid for it. Technology is great, but as you all may be aware, there may be instances where there's a glitch and you may lose time. Thankfully, that has happened very, very, very rarely, knock on wood. But again, it is a software, and it does have there is an inherent risk for things like that to happen. And so again, just to be on the safe side, just check your time on a daily or a very consistent basis, just to ensure that your time has been entered in. Now, one thing that we're really going to look for, we learned in a previous video, is the concept of overlaps. And one thing we're going to look for here is this new type of overlap called a self-overlap, and we'll check out that in a little bit. But right now, I want to see what I'm going to get paid for from the 29th through the 3rd of November. So once I enter in these dates, I come over here and I simply left-click the create/refresh button. So I click it, I give it a few seconds, and now all this pops up. So really, here's what this information is telling us. It's given to you broken down by day, and it's in ascending order, so the oldest date's on top, newest date's on bottom. It tells you your start date and your end date, your start time and your end time, and for what code you're being paid for. This note column here is how many minutes that time span was for. The day here, is a running total of how many hours are in that day that you're being paid for, and the period is how many accumulating hours of how much you're being paid for that week or pay period. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to confirm if those times look right. Now, I did work on the 29th, and I do know I did come in from 4 to 5 a.m. for a 1-hour shift. I had to run in and do something real quick, I had to do a quick shift coverage. That looks right. I know that was me, I did it. But wait a minute. It goes from the 29th through the 31st. I took a vacation day on the 30th, and it's not showing up. So I'm going to have to put a little mental note there because now I need to go back and see what's going on there. On Halloween, I did take an 8-hour vacation day, so that looks right. On the 1st, it says I worked from midnight to noon. Uh-oh. Something's wrong here. So look, on the 1st November, it says I worked from midnight to noon. And the next line says I worked from midnight to 6 a.m. This is a self-overlap. And the only time this really occurs is when you work in maybe 2 separate houses during a single day. Now, just like we learned in a prior video, a client cannot be in 2 places at once. A client can't be receiving residential services in a house while at the same time receiving transportation services on the van. Just like them, you can't be in 2 houses at once. So you can't be being paid for multiple hours within 1 hour and be in separate homes. That's impossible. So what happened was I was working in my normal house from, say, midnight to 6 a.m. and then I had to leave. But looks like for this shift here, I said I was working for 12 hours and getting res hab. And here I was getting paid for 6 hours of res hab, when in reality, I wasn't in both homes at once, so whatever house I was not in, I have to remove that time. Now, let's say you completely were oblivious to this and you did not, you just didn't catch it when you looked at this report. So if I come over here, and anything that is highlighted over here in the day column means it was more than, I think it's 8 hours per day. So as of on the 1st of November, if I come down to this bottom number, this is saying I've worked 22 hours. I'm going to get paid for 22 hours for work on the 1st. Well, actually, no, I'm not, because 6 hours of it is an overlap. I can't be paid 12 hours in one house and then 6 hours in another house at the same time. I can't be paid double, so one of those is going to be removed. So please keep that in mind, because one thing that we do when we submit payroll is we can catch these before payroll is submitted, and we just remove it. By the time we're submitting payroll, there's not enough time for us to call you and tell you, hey, we noticed that you've overlapped with yourself. We have to remove 6 hours. Your program managers may have that eventually here in the near future, but as of right now, me and my staff in payroll, we don't have the time to contact everybody and let you know that you have a self-overlap as soon as we're submitting payroll. Thankfully, it's a very rare occurrence, but again, the only time it will happen is if you are working multiple houses during a shift. And to mitigate that, just make sure that if you're working in one house for 4 hours and then you have to go across the street to another house, make sure you use one map for that one house for 4 hours. And then after that time, if you're not in the house, you won't have anything on that house's map. You would pick it up on the other house. So in this case, if I worked in 5301 from noon to 4, I would have a map for 5301 from noon to 4. If I had to walk across the street for a couple hours to 5303, then I would pick up my time from when I left the 5301 house until whenever I left that house. So again, your maps are based on where you actually are, as well as the clients. Because if it's on the map during that time, that you're confirming that either you or the clients were there. In this case, I can't be in one house for 12 hours and be in another house for 6 of those same hours. It's impossible. So again, if this truly does happen, and you look at this and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get paid 49 hours for this week. No, you're not. You're actually going to get 43 because, again, 6 hours is an overlap, and we have to remove it because, again, we can't have that happening. So just be vigilant on that, and just make sure that anytime that you are switching houses or you have to go to another house during your shift, just make sure that you stop entering information on one map and you pick it up at the other house, because otherwise this information is going to fall through. So that's a self-overlap, but as I jump down, everything else looks to be fine. I'm going to remove that map so I know I won't be paid for it. I do know from noon to 3 p.m. I had a meeting. I had to attend, so I used admin time. From 3 to 4, I had let's say first aid training that I had to go to. And again, it's training because I wasn't with a client, so it can't be res hab. The next day on the 2nd, I started my shift at 6 until 7 a.m. I was providing res hab. But if you remember from our very first video, this was the situation where I got sick. So at 7 a.m. to the end of my shift, which was only an hour, I took sick time. So I can, from this information here, I know that I am taking 2 hours of sick time. Yeah, 2 hours of sick time. No, 1 hour. I'm sorry. 1 hour of sick time. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm taking 1 hour of sick time and quite a few hours of vacation. But I just mentioned earlier, I know I took vacation on the 30th, so why is it not showing up on this report? Now remember, anything on this report is going to be your payroll. If it's not on here, you won't be paid for it. So please make sure you utilize this report and check it and make sure it's there. Thankfully, 99.99999% of the time it is, but again, it is software, it is technology, and technology can maybe delete something that you don't want it to. Knock on wood, it probably won't happen, but again, we have to assume that risk. But I do know that I took vacation time on the 30th, so I want to know why it's not there. So in the event that you know you worked and you could not, it's not showing up, what you need to do is you need to go into the map. So we just close the report and we come back over here to the RHS button, which again is your map. And up here in the top left is a drop-down date box. All I'm going to do is I'm going to click it. I'm going to go back in time. So in this case, on October 30th, I know I took vacation, but it didn't show up on that payroll report. So I want to figure out why. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to it. Well, here it is. But we'll cover this in the next video. This map is actually unlocked. So what an unlocked map means is it's not going to show up in payroll. Excuse me. So that's why it's not showing up on my report. Even though I put it in there, which is correct, I did my job correctly, the fact is that this map is not locked, which means I'm not going to be paid for it. If this is the case, just maybe wait a day, because maybe it just got missed when it was locked. But if it is getting close to payroll, please contact your program manager immediately and let them know that there is a unlocked map that has time in it that you're going to be paid for. Just kind of as a safety net, when me and my staff submit payroll, we make sure that every map is locked. So in the event that there is a map that was created that wasn't showing up on your report and you notice that's unlocked, believe me, we make sure everything is locked before we submit payroll. So don't lose any sleep. That's what we're here for. We just want to make things easy. But for whatever reason, when we ran that report, the 30th was not showing. And the only reason why is because this map is unlocked. The information is in there. So once this entire map does get locked, these hours of vacation will show up. So that is how you run the time card report for yourself. And that is a perfect segue into the next video. Thank you.